Well, good evening, everyone. This is John Craig.
This is Sandy.
And here we are again on the third day of the week. And this is Walking in Spirit and Truth. I was fixing to say, let us reason together.
No,
but
you're not even there for your show, Let Us Reason Together, which is on Mondays at 8:45 a.m. Central.
So my show you're doing on Mondays at 8:45 Central on Monday. So I
think it's now
that.
My show.
I guess it is your show.
Even though it was your show.
It was mine.
Oh, well.
Mondays are Mondays. Very, very busy. But anyway, we're so glad that you're here and that we've got a lot of things we want to share with you this evening. I'm excited about what Sandy's going to be bringing and talk to you a little bit about the events going on at Life of Worship and some other events that are going on around the world before we get to that.
But we need to know, who are we? We are John and Sandi Craig. We co-pastor Life of Worship in Amarillo, Texas together. And we meet, of course, several times a week, but specifically on Sabbath, on Saturday, Shabbat. And we meet for tour study at 2 p.m. Central Time. And we broadcast live on Zoom. And if you'd like to be a part of that, just let us know. Drop us an email at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org is where our email address is, or it is low@lifeofworshipamarillo.org. But we do a few other things. We do the Let Us Reason Together show, which is Mondays at 8:45 a.m. Central. We also do Monday War Room Prayers.
But you never know when I might just pop in on you on that Monday morning. And so have a few words, because I always have a few words.
You do always have a few words. Well, we had a great show last Monday too, and you weren't there. It was just me and Mark.
I know. I didn't get to be. I was, really busy.
Anyway, yes to Joe.
Hi,
yes,
Joe.
And yes. And I'm still, Joe, you are healed. Actually, Joe, and that I know nobody else knows what we're talking about. I thought I sent you a response on that. So maybe it didn't go through or something. I'll have to check. Anyway, what else do? We also have the next chapter on Thursdays at 8:45 a.m. Central. So that's
amazing. That's amazing. That time slot seems to keep showing up again.
And then, of course, this show. And we do a lot more. We want to let you guys know that we have Sukkot coming, and it is Clear Vision 2020 and Yeshua the Waymaker. Had to think about it for a second. And it is October 2nd through Friday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 10th. And you can drop us an email or download the registration packet, or just do whatever you think is best. And that'll work. And I want to just let you know, the registration packet it's pushing the old information through on some of it. So on the days of the week. So please note that it is Friday through Saturday, October 2nd through the October 10th. So don't worry about that part. And what else? We have a prison ministry. And if you know of someone who is in the system and they would be interested in receiving teaching and encouragement from Life of Worship, just let us know. We also would like to hear from them as well. So drop them a line, tell them, let us know, and we will begin sending things to them. We're really blessed. We've just been really blessed to get to know some of these men in the system.
They're hungry. They're hungry. They want more. They want more contact, especially from the Hebraic roots of our faith. And from that perspective, they just and they have all the time in the world, especially so many of the prisons are locked down right now. They're stuck in their cells or stuck on their bed. They can't get up. They can't really move around. And some are saying, the only thing I can do is just read all day. So they get our materials and they're reading them and they're growing by them. And then it causes more questions. And
we send things from Torah studies, prophetic words, other encouragement, devotionals, try to answer their questions and other things. And anyway, so also if you'd like to donate to the prison ministry or to Life of Worship, we need you to partner with us. And that is, wow, I felt a breeze.
I did too. I was like,
I'm trying to figure out where that came from. And that you can look at that at www.lifeofworshipamarillo.org. Go to donate or go to justice for the prison ministry.
Yeah. Well, we got Joe online. Hi, Joe. And so glad that you could join us and put some notes there. And if you want to join us online as well and put some notes in there and comments, we'd love to hear from you. But we're going to pray for Joe real quick because she had a bunch of cans fall on her face today. And so, Father, we just pray right now for Joe that there would be no bruising, be no black eye, no bumps, any of that. All of
the
it,
black eye would leave
and completely be restored and healed quickly in the name of Yeshua.
Just as you've healed her eyes, let the full manifestation of that come forth, Father.
Amen and amen.
Right
for
now,
that.
we praise you, we exalt you that it is done in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So, any other news that you want to talk about, Life of Worship wise?
Is there? Let me know, because I'm sort of exhausted tonight. So you tell me, is there something?
I can't think of anything right now. So I have some things that are kind of stirring around in my head. I thought I'd like
to. Really?
Yeah, I have a few. Is it just the marbles loose?
No, there's things that stir in your head.
Okay. All right. Okay, so some things are going on in my head, and obviously, we're living in very interesting times, and so what I wanted to share with you, real quickly, is about we have been talking about for months now, going back into March, talking about asteroids, near Earth collisions, meteor strikes, meteor storms, and all that type of thing. And you say, like, well, what's going on with it? How come we haven't heard anything? And is this really true, or are you just crying wolf? No, we're not crying wolf, because we know in Scripture it talks about meteors hitting the earth. And we know that it talks about in Scriptures about brimstone falling from the heavens and that type of thing. It's all part of the end time events that we are waiting on for the return of Yeshua. So a couple of different things I have heard, and this is the thing is that it's not just from one source. I've been hearing it now from multiple sources, and from the different people that I do listen to and follow up on. And because I don't have context to get this information, because of course the only thing the media wants to talk about is either COVID or Black Lives Matter, and so let's move on. Nothing to see here. So, but the thing that's really important is that it looks like coming up in our near future, which part of that has to relate to what's going to happen tomorrow, is a near Earth collision. But I don't think that we have anything to worry about this. But this asteroid that's coming near us tomorrow, it's July the 22nd, it's going to pass by at about 2.04 lunar or AUs. So, or lunar distance, that's lunar distance. So it's going to be a little ways out. But then on the 27th, there's one that's coming in that's under that. And the reason why I bring this up is that when these are the ones that they're tracking, these are the ones that they know of. But whenever there is one asteroid that's coming in, we're always concerned about what type of fragments and others that are coming with it that may be a little bit closer. Now, one of the things that we're also looking at is that because of this planet, Nibiru, Planet X, Planet 7X, Goblin, whatever it is, it's the sun's binaural. It's a binaural system with our sun. So you see that they work together and in tandem. But every so many hundreds or thousands of years, this other system comes in. That's what we're watching. It's been talked about in history in the past, and it is approaching and could be visible as early as September this year. I don't know what direction it is. It could be visible. That's what the experts are saying. Then it'll continue to approach, and it'll continue to approach to where it'll be more visible in December, and possibly have a passing in front of the Earth or between the Earth and the Sun, maybe as in and around Passover of 2021. So those are some things that we're looking at. But as it comes in, it has to go through the asteroid field. Now, it's been talked about when it comes through, it's going to be pulling asteroids with it, creating a tail. But one of the interesting things that's been talked about is that it's actually going to be pushing asteroids in front of it, which creates a tail in front of it. That's what they're looking at, and that's what they're concerned about, is coming our way in September. So what does that look like from what NASA is telling us over at the cneos.jpl.nasa.gov? And on September 1st, we will have an asteroid that's going to pass at 0.32 lunar distance, and with a minimum of a 0.19. What that means is that thing could it could deviate from its path and actually have an impact with the Earth. I think when those that keep track of these distances that they're coming in, it could be pulled into the Earth's gravitational pull, or it could simply scrape through our atmosphere and explode in our atmosphere, causing fragments to hit the Earth. So this is what we're looking at on September 1st. This is a pretty big deal. And there's a lot of people that have been talking about it. This is something that would not surprise me, is that governments may have an alleged lockdown because of a second round of COVID or whatever it might be. Whatever their excuse they want to have is to lock people in their homes when this thing is approaching. And so expect that maybe in the next few weeks that they will start saying, hey, it's here. We can't go back. Everybody's going to have to go back home. Only essential workers, which I hate that term, but those that they deem should be still working for basic services, but everybody else needs to stay in their house, shelter in place, that type of thing. Why? Because they want to have some type of semblance of order and control within the city, so people don't panic, don't go out rioting, don't go looting. I don't know what that means about Black Lives Matter, but nevertheless, that's one of the things that is a concern of a lockdown. When this thing is approaching, I think it's going to start hitting the major mainstream media sources. I don't know. Maybe they'll keep it silent and let people just experience the aftermath of it. Where is it going to hit? Is it going to bring showers, meteor showers on the Earth? That's another question, but we're looking at there could be some positive showers, meteor showers, even meteor strikes in magnitude in September. And that's for us to wait and see. We just need to pay attention. One of the sources that I was listening to said that maybe the reason why Israel is doing a big push for Aliyah right now, for Jews that are scattered around the world to come to Israel now, and that they're saying that it is an issue of a matter of an emergency. Come to Israel now. And the placement of those people is going to be on the eastern side of Israel. Now, everybody the point is that many countries in the world will be affected by these meteor showers. However, the calculations are that those that are in the eastern part of Israel and Syria, those areas will not be affected. So that is another thing to be watching for, whereas other people will be. One of the other concerns is asteroid or meteor strikes that hit the ocean, is that those people that are on the coast will have devastating impacts of tsunami waves coming in across the coast. So watch the calendar, watch where these impacts are coming or when they're coming in. As you get more information and as NASA posts more information, if you're by the coast, you want to get out of town in enough time just to go on a vacation, a little short trip, so you're not stuck in traffic. Just saying. They're saying in Israel itself, those that are along the coastline like Haifa and Tel Aviv, that those cities will be devastated. That's what they're expecting there. So this is really a big deal. But why am I talking about this? Is not to put fear in, but I'm just saying that these are the signs of the coming of Yeshua the Messiah. And let me just put it this way. We should be prepared to do whatever, because that will affect supply chain. You need to have food, you need to have water, you need to have ability to trade, barter, whatever, in order to continue to survive and to be able to gather with those of like kind and like mind, like those within your community, your faith community, your family, whatever it needs to be to gather and survive. So those of you that are always ready to go on Sukkot, and you've been Sukkoting, you know what it means to camp, and go out into the wilderness area for a period of time, you want to be prepared. Now, here's the other thing. When Sukkot comes, it may be the safest place on earth to be, is where you're gathered with the people of God and Sukkoting. So that's only part of it, because what is accompanying these asteroids that are going to be crossing the Earth's orbit and creating these literally they're like debris fields or clouds that we don't know what's in them. In fact, at some point in time, some of the clouds will be going through with small debris that it'll look like the earth, like the sky is on fire, because they'll just be burning up in the atmosphere. But the other thing that they're looking at is that there are energy waves that are coming, more energy waves that are coming in. And of course, what that does, it affects the electromagnetic field around the earth, to the point that they are concerned at some point in the next several months, maybe in the next couple years, that the energy be so strong it actually collapses the electromagnetic field around the earth. With the passing of this planet X, and the collapsing of the magnetic field, it could actually cause the magnetic poles to reverse and switch. When that type of thing happens, Mike from around the world has indicated that we could have as high as 200-mile-an-hour winds, because we won't have a magnetic field that's controlling our atmosphere, that's protecting us through our the atmosphere and the way a climate is. The other thing is that it could create, in the meantime, we could have really severe storms as we get hit by these waves of energy. And some of these storms, and if some of you have probably already experienced it this spring and in different parts of the world, but when these storms come up, just having these strong, powerful 100-mile-an-hour winds, straight line winds. We've had winds like that here in the panhandle of Texas. Last year, we had two storm events that pushed 80-mile-an-hour plus winds through, straight line winds, and they lasted for hours, and with lots of wind damaged property and trees down and all that type of thing. And when I'm looking at the storms, because I'm an insurance adjuster, I do go back and look at the wind reports. We see trees going down at around 60 miles an hour. So imagine 80-mile-an-hour sustained winds, 100-mile-an-hour sustained winds. They do a lot of damage. So what do we do? Like Joe says, trust in Yah, look up, trust in Yah. Absolutely, we want to do that. We say these things because we want to be on top of the news, and so that we can be prepared.
Didn't you tell me, though, that you were talking about tsunamis on the coast of Israel, but what about, you've told me and mentioned about what the possibility that the United States, the prediction of the United States territory would look like. And we've seen this for years, actually from the naval headquarters and other places. They have maps on what they think the U.S. will look like after a disaster.
Yeah.
I have that question. Then also you told me about the earthquakes that are going to bring down mountains and things like that too.
Yeah.
And so what about all that?
That's some really good points, because as the energy hits the earth and the energy is driven into the core heats up, and it pushes all sorts of energy. And we can see that by how the earthquakes are ramping up. In fact, we're on a big earthquake watch right now, because we are on the front facing side of the sun, facing the incoming planet X. So what's that do? It creates an energy field, and I believe it's more of a plasma energy or a electromagnetic energy. It's not gravitational, because it's the whole universe, the whole solar system works off of these grid lines of power, just like the grid lines that come out of the electromagnetic field around the earth. And so we can have really strong earthquakes just simply because of the coming around on the front-facing side of planet X, planet 7X, etc. The other thing is, as the energy is going into the core, we're not only talking about earthquakes and increased volcanoes. In fact, there's a huge volcano that erupted in Italy just a couple days ago. and Mount Stromboli sounds like a food, but something like that. I mean, huge. Look for more volcanoes going off like that. Even in Italy, Iceland are a couple of places. But the Earth, it's causing the Earth crust to expand, and as it expands, it means it starts to split. And when it starts to split, there's going to be it creates all sorts of movement. There's big cracks that are happening across the continent of Africa right now, just huge cracks.
How big?
I don't even know how many miles, like hundreds of miles.
Do you know how wide?
And I don't know how wide, anywhere from probably 10 to 30 yards wide in some places, maybe even wider. There's also when as these events are taking place, what they're talking about is in the geo changes, even the Grand Canyon may collapse on itself. There's been times in history, and they know historically there have been some major things that have happened on the earth that has caused great upheaval in the ground, like in the flood, where they have seashells that are found on the top of mountains. They've had like villages of people that are
frozen instantaneously.
That lived on the coastlines they've been raised like several thousand feet, and they're frozen instantly because of that. These have been found historically and archaeologically.
I will say this too. You may think that's impossible, but it was in the last couple decades that Mexico had a volcano that developed. It was flat ground, and within 48 hours they had a mountain. They had a mountain.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff does happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it does. I mean, just really big changes. The other things now, talking about the America, where as these earth changes take place, one of those changes will be down the Mississippi, where America is split from east to west by the Mississippi.
And it will be,
could be as wide as 200 miles wide. And it'll go all the way from the Gulf of Mexico all the way up to the Great Lakes. And so that's one part, but also where California actually does split open, and the Pacific Ocean swamps down into the Mojave Desert area, those low-lying areas between the eastern part of California and into Arizona and parts of Utah, with the Great Salt Lake area, where it'll be an inland sea. These are things that we need to look at.
You told me the coast will be gone, Florida, all of that will be gone. Mm-hmm. Even part of Texas and the southern area will be gone.
Yeah. Look at the states that are pursuing the lockdowns right now. Where are they? These are many of the coastal states, and Texas is one of them, because I'm wondering, it makes me think that, is it partly because we've got a huge coastline? I don't know, but it just makes me wonder. There's certain things that we need to consider. Here's something else to consider. The ones that are actually watching the near Earth objects and doing the studies is Johns Hopkins University. Do you know who's doing the COVID studies and determining when to do the lockdowns and tracking all of the COVID outbreaks and that type of thing, and keeping the statistics? It's Johns Hopkins University. It makes me wonder if there is a reason for it, because as Gil Broussard talked about when he was here several years ago at Life of Worship, he said that preceding the incoming Planet 7X, which he has called it, he said that there would be implemented martial law in the United States and in many countries around the world. Well, we didn't know how they were going to do it, but that is what we've been seeing. There, so considering the fact that COVID has not been dangerous, it's nothing unlike a flu outbreak where many people experience various symptoms. Some worse.
2009, 2008 outbreak of whatever flu that was. Some
worse than others. And I'm not saying it hasn't been debilitating, but the death rate is extremely low. In Amarillo is 0.04. I mean, it is extremely low, as opposed to those that.
But not just here; it's that way all over.
And it's like that all over. And the highest places, like in New York, is because they were inflating their lungs with those when they were intubating them and putting them on the what do you call those air machines, whatever you call them? My mind just went blank. Ventilators, yeah. And they putting that pressure in. They don't need the pressure because their lungs were actually inflamed. They needed a steroid. They needed something to reverse the inflammations, and that's why they were having a hard time breathing. But Governor Cuomo sent them to their death. And
but even those numbers are exaggerated. The numbers have been exaggerated. I think I said on the program on Let Us Reason, they finally got it. I think it was Georgia. The person had a motorcycle crash and he died. And they put down it was Florida, and they put down that he died of COVID. Of course, they're admitting that. In Texas, they're admitting that at least 3,400. I think 3,428. I don't know, that there a massive number of deaths. They've reduced the number because they were not ever tested.
Yeah. They may have come in contact with somebody, so therefore
even the counts of people that supposedly have it, they're reducing them now and having to fess up. Yeah, we never tested them. We just put their name down.
Yeah. So there may be some. I believe that there's a correlation between the medical martial law and the lockdown and what's going to be happening for the incoming into our atmosphere here.
Can read what Joe said.
So Joe says there was a nurse in New York that showed that COVID patients were being mixed with regular patients so that their numbers could go up so that they could get money from the government. And that's true.
Well, that's almost what they tried to do with my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
She tested negative.
But let's put her in the COVID wing.
Let's go ahead and put her in the COVID wing anyway. Just in case.
Yeah.
And they tested her again. Of course, it was negative. And I think I told you guys, my cousin lit into them and they moved her. But they without my cousin lighting into them, they wouldn't have moved her. Really, people? Anyway, it's not a COVID show.
No.
But it's just frustrating because that's what's in the news and that's what we're living. And I'm just seeing the effects even on some people in our congregation because it weighs heavily. The martial law aspect of it.
Yeah.
The weightiness of the ridiculous laws and the limitation of gathering and stores and times. And it's not convenient.
Yeah.
It's not good.
And Joe said in here, Florida will not be around when these geographical things take place. This is not to cause panic or anything like this. Please don't take it this way. You just need to pray. It's important God's people pray and let the Father lead you to where you need to be. The thought is because Florida is basically at sea level. And if we have
what about Louisiana?
And you've got incoming coming in that hit the oceans, and there's big tsunamis, then it creates also another issue. When the upheaval of the geology happens, some have thought it's, of course, all of this is just thoughts. People are just thinking. They're conjecturing that what may happen, that Florida could sink 200 feet, and that.
And Atlantis will be raised.
Yeah, that the ancient Atlantis could be raised. So these are some things that we're looking at. I've talked about before about that there are giant lakes of fresh water underneath our oceans, that as the crust has pressure and begins to split open, the fresh water will be released and it'll actually dilute the salt water, and that our coastlines could have flooding, just like they have flooding in Miami every day. Do you know that during high tide? I mean, seawater actually comes into Miami, Florida every day, and they have to have pumps to pump that seawater back out during the high tides. So just something to be thinking about and to consider what is happening in our earth. These are the signs of the return of Yeshua, and we just want people to consider, to pray, to research. Don't take my word. You look it up for yourself. You determine what is best for your family. It is a time, though, if there's going to be supply chain interruptions. We've been talking about this for a long time. We've seen it even with the COVID lockdowns, supply chain interruptions, and you want to have a food source. You want to be able to have food, water, ability to barter and trade. And also, like I said, be able to gather with like mind.
And Joe brought up the news story, and I do know about it. It was one that I was considering earlier for a different show, but she said the lady that was diagnosed with COVID in Kentucky, by the way, she had no symptoms or anything. They wanted her to sign a paper stating that she would let them know when she was going to go anywhere. She wouldn't do it. So they basically put her under house arrest, put ankle monitors on them.
Yeah.
That's messed up.
Yeah. So just keep in mind all of these big news articles that come out. This is really important. Joe says this is to keep us distracted during this time and season. This is to keep us off keel. Everything, we as people have a sense of justice about us. We know what's right, what's wrong. When we see something, it's like, that's not right. Like the couple up there in St. Louis who had Black Lives Matter break down the gates to their community and come onto their property. They've already had a history of tearing down, burning, destroying, and destruction of property, killing, mayhem, rape, all of those things going on. And here, Black Lives Matter comes on into their neighborhood, and they have a historic residence, which they spent many years and thousands of dollars to restore. It's a historical landmark in St. Louis and in an older neighborhood. And so it's a landmark. And they were like, don't come onto my property. And so with guns, they didn't quite handle their guns quite right, but they did it to protect their property because they felt that their lives were threatened.
How did they not handle their guns quite right? Can they not hold a gun on their property?
Well, and the district attorney there is filing felony charges against them
for having their own guns on their own property. Well, there's no charges.
Okay, but see, now what do we sin? We feel like that is a huge sense of injustice. Why? Because it's to distract us. It's to distract us to look into that thing, look at more events like that, create an emotional charge, keep us off center, off keel.
What kind of charge can he possibly bring? You can have felony, your own guns on your own property.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with
I hope they get a great lawyer, and I hope they nail the DA.
Yeah,
and the city or whatever's bringing charges.
The DA is a George Soros plant. George Soros.
I pray that they have enough money to bring up charges and file a lawsuit against the city.
Yeah. So yeah, they definitely need a countersuit. They have every right to protect the property
and themselves.
And
we already know that BLM, Antifa, and all of them. If you say all lives matter, they're going to shoot and kill you. So yeah, they're scared for their lives and they're defending their lives and they have the right. You come onto my property and threaten me, I'm going to do the same thing. Only I probably will shoot. Sorry.
And then drag them inside.
They're on my property. They're on my property. If they're threatening me and my granddaughter or anybody else,
you have every right. When you feel like your life is threatened.
If my life feels threatened, I can legally carry and I will and do it.
That's right. That's right. You gotta be ready.
Yeah.
You gotta be prepared. Mm-hmm. So these are just them. So just beware. There are emotionally charged events that are going on, but beware that those are to keep us looking in one way and keep us distracted over here, while over here the big issues are going on.
Jason, you're over here going, all these movies that we've seen over the last decade and a half, 2 decades even, are, because I guess Red Dawn's even older than that, but Joe's like, see Hunger Games and Divergent and Minority Report and Red Dawn, and they remind us of everything that's going on in Jason. Hello, Jason and Christine. He said The Purge. I hadn't seen that one, but yeah, absolutely. The movies have played all this out, but they always they string it out and they let us know that stuff's happening.
Yeah.
So
these are just some updates we wanted to make sure that you're aware of, and you can research them yourself and go back and look at the reports that are out there. It's something we've got to continue to be aware of, but we also, like Joe had put in the comments earlier, look up, for our redemption is drawing nigh. And these are just the signs of those times. And, if we got hit by a meteor here in Amarillo, we wouldn't really have any notice. But to be absent from the body is be present with the Lord. So just know where you're at all times.
And I hope I don't get negative feedback about if I feel like my life is threatened or my family's life is threatened, I'm going to take care of the threat. Right?
Yeah.
We have the right
to do that. And I think, well, We lived, whether good or bad, we live in the most conservative district in the United States, congressional district in the United States.
We do have our amendment rights, and that Texas has always been good about that. So anyway.
So
well, I think it's time for us to get on with the rest of the show. What do you think?
I think so too.
I want you to tell me, where do we build places of worship outside of our congregational settings?
Yes.
What are
we
they?
do? Well,
are you looking at my notes?
I saw your notes. Actually, I was just thinking about. Okay, here's a current event. Black Lives Matter is a religious movement. Why?
Okay, now you got to explain that.
Okay, because what are they doing? They're destroying the monuments of history and lifting up their own leaders, and they're telling everybody to take a knee, to bow down, to declare their allegiance to the Black Lives political church that it is. I'm going to use that term because it's a political church by which they have sermons, and they have I'll take my hands off the mouse there. They have sermons. They have their declarations of faith.
I'm sure they get donations.
They get donations. They have a 501c3 tax-free type of status with the government. Guess what? They're a religious organization. There you go. It's a place of worship. And on their streets, they put their name. They're not allowed to have any other name on their streets, painted on the streets.
On streets that aren't their own.
That are not their own. Their places of worship, they're allowed to gather. They're allowed to spew their violent doctrines. And so there you go.
Okay, when we took a look at worship, though, and praise, look at
all
those
things, probably took you off the different
where
direction.
Hearts are dedicated. What are some places that we build for worship other than our churches or congregational places?
Well, think about gyms. Think about coliseums. Think about football stadiums, baseball stadiums, your high school stadiums, your high school gyms where you have your basketball games. You have all those different places where people gather, they cheer, they sing the praises, they sing their fight songs.
They worship those people.
They worship the heroes that are out there on the floor, on the field. They're battling out there to,
And they do, and then they even have, sometimes they have performances midstream, like worship performances. I think of the Super Bowl, or other places like that,
or in zone dances,
But I'm thinking, specifically, you bring a band out, proclaim the doctrine that others follow. Those are worship centers, guys.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They are worship centers. We think of them, they're stadiums and coliseums and gymnasiums and civic centers. No, guys, they're meant for worship.
The Grateful Dead is a great example for that. Is that they were known for their live concerts. And why? Because if you just listen to an album of the Grateful Dead, not a lot there that you really can get into. It was about their live performances. Because the Grateful Dead, it was all about.
Do you know this? Did you go?
I never went to the Grateful Dead, but I've heard people talk about the experience of going to their concert, because it was all about getting the people to a particular zone where everybody was like on the same frequency. It was like a state of worship. And that's where they wanted to plateau into that place of worship. Their river. There was a certain frequency, a certain zone. And then once they got there, they wanted to hang out there for a while. And it became a worship experience, using their version of rock and roll.
And see, as a worship pastor, I've been leading worship since 1986 for massive crowds and small crowds, whatever. But one of the things that you do is let me just talk for a second, because I'm going to get this quote. I put it down somewhere in my notes. Here it is. Worship musicians don't simply play their music, they pray their music. Worship is an expansion of prayer. Prayer is an extension of worship. Prayer opens our hearts to the journey into God's presence, and worship carries our hearts on the journey in God's presence. I love that. In fact, I was like, Vivian Hibbert, I think, have that on her site. And I love that statement. But as a worship pastor, or as a worship leader, one of the things you want to do is you are to help usher them into the presence. You are singing and proclaiming words. You're praying the word. You're praying. You're singing, using your song, your words to declare who he is. And your goal, honestly, is to just get to that place. And you know, when you get there, when he has been enthroned, he's encamped, he's right there. And that river is so, quote unquote, river is flowing. And the power of his power moves. Sometimes all you can do is get on your face in silence. Other times, you just crying begins, miracles happen, and that's what your goal is. But what you just described here is there's a counterfeit to the very same thing, getting into God's presence, getting into Satan's presence.
When you have a crowd of people together and they're all of like kind and like mind, there's a certain amount of flow, a certain amount of energy that just comes from that. I can't explain it. It's just, you have people there, you have a unity, and you have an excitement that comes from it. Everybody is there for the same purpose, and there are things that people will do and participate in to even elevate that energy level. And what do they do at rock concerts or concerts like that? They're the very act of the screaming, the dancing, the drinking of alcohol, taking of drugs to enhance the experience, to create a higher level of worship, so to speak, in a counterfeit way. That is what that experience is all about. And understand that is the counterfeit.
And just as the enemy wants to be praised and worshiped like he is Yah, and hello, he is not, his way is damaging. Think about it. A rock concert, she said, kill the ears and the liver, etc., and death. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about that. That just reminds me of the picture you can find on YouTube of water. You turn on water and it just flows. They set it up high on a ladder and it flows down, and it's beautiful, just a beautiful flow. And they turn on some sort of that
like death metal
kind of music, and the water begins to come down jagged,
very jagged looking,
and it affects. And then of course you've got the experiments with the rice and the ice crystals and snow, whatever, and they're so affected by words and even music.
And our body's made up of how much of water?
Yeah, a good part of our body is made up of water, so we wonder why we feel bad when we're inputting that kind of stuff in us all day. But I want to sort of compare the worship of the world, which we would call Greek, as to what Yahweh expects. And so let's go there for a few minutes. It looks like, because we're already late in the hour, that we'll have to continue this next week. And by the way, I want to apologize.
Sorry, I took too much time.
That's okay, because it's important. I said we were going to talk about enthronement ceremony, but I need to do some more study on that. I wasn't finished. So we'll get there. But I apologize that we weren't doing it yet today. But when you think about the great Colosseums and things that were built to accommodate people and what they're doing, as you've already said, it's really like a worship ceremony that's going on. We spend thousands and millions, not thousands, we spend millions, if not billions of dollars creating places for people to gather and put somebody or something or some people on display, and people raise their hands and people flicker their lights, cry, shake. Oh, they can't, to be in their presence, try to touch them, sing about them, worship them. And we spend billions of dollars doing that. And I think it's very interesting that you brought out BLM is a religious of itself. And their throne, they make their places of worship wherever they want. But these, in ancient times, these things were thought to please the gods. Well, I think they still think it's to please the gods, because the people that are out there, not everyone, because there's some great people in sports that love the Lord, but there's a lot of people out there, and I think of Hollywood in particular, musicians and actors and They want all of the praise they can get.
Yeah.
They want that. It pleases them. And that's
Yes.
the same thing that happened to the quote unquote gods, little gods, in days of old. So have times really changed? Do we still build those colosseums that we think in Rome? We think, well, that ended in Rome. No, it's still going on for the same reasons too, because different gods were worshipped back then for different reasons, and each god was hovering over a different aspect of the world, is what it's believed. And I'm sure we could relate that to today. We worship the musicians for one reason. Maybe that's because it makes us we think we feel good. We reach that state of ecstasy, so to speak. We worship the sport gods because we're living through them. You can help me out here.
Vicariously living through them.
Yeah.
And I mean, you heard about the Monday morning quarterbacking. Everybody can do it better on Monday morning. So there's that. You've got actors that people lift up. They put them on pedestals. That you have, whether you use
different gods for different reasons.
Yeah, and because we go to the movie theaters and we pay our money to watch these things on the big screen.
Entertained.
Why? So we can be entertained. So we can forget about the world for a little bit. We can be lifted into another realm for a period of time to escape. I mean, those are all different reasons. Why did they have the Colosseums? They brought the gladiators out so the people of Rome would not be thinking about the demise of the Roman culture. So they had to keep the people distracted. And so, what's going on right now? Well, you got to keep the people distracted in one way or another because of the COVID lockdowns. There's turmoil. People are upset. So,
they haven't been able to worship their gods like normal.
Yeah. So we have to see how it's the same plan that's being used over and over and over again.
It's the same plan of all those years ago, because then they worshiped, they sang songs, they played instruments, they danced it to their gods, and it literally unified the people then as it does now, because like you said, it's a distraction. Only they went further, but maybe not, because this stuff happens too. Sexual acts, homosexual acts, all sorts of things were common in those times, because those gods considered the body's irrelevant. Wait, I just said that statement. That's sort of what society says now too. It's your body, do what you want, but really we're attaining that inner peace.
Well, the whole purpose of putting on masks is to remove our individual, so we look like we're all together. We all look the same. We've lost our individual imaging. And so we have the image of the masses. The image is of one people, a like mind. It is a type of mind control. You can't go in, you can't buy or sell without a mask on. I mean, these are because you're wearing the mask becomes a mark. I've heard somebody saying it is if this is how they got everyone to wear burqas, because before we said, why would women ever put a mask on their face? And yet now everybody, men and women, are wearing burqas, wearing masks. Their image is being masked so that they portray as one people. And anybody that's not wearing a mask, what's happening? They're being mask shamed. They're being now here in Amarillo. I've not experienced it because I'm not wearing a mask. But I also haven't been to Walmart. I don't want to go to Walmart. I'd rather go to a local store.
You know what? I haven't seen people doing anything. I've been there, and I don't wear my mask as I'm supposed to. I wear it, but I don't wear it properly when I'm there. For one, I can't breathe with it. I can't breathe.
And isn't it interesting? What was it that George Floyd said? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. And now everybody's having to wear masks. And what's everybody saying? I can't breathe. I can't breathe. It's a
That's interesting.
It's an echo of the very chant that Black Lives Matter have been saying. And when you say you can't breathe, well, who is it that gave us breath? From the very beginning in the garden. Think about how that is symbolic to remove us from our Creator and detach us from our Creator.
That's very interesting. Well, I want us to go back, though, to think about the gods of old, supposedly, and the gods of today. Your body doesn't matter. It's attaining that state of mind that the gods are interested in. Isn't that sort of what they want, is to capture your mind right now? Because Greek thought, it's all in the mind, whereas Hebrew, we know, does things. Greeks think about things.
Yeah.
And so it's irrelevant what happens to the body. It's just achieve that state of mind. There was some opposition, though, but it doesn't mean it was correct opposition back in the days of old. The Stoics actually would have nothing to do with anything like that, but still, for them, it was still about a state of mind. Their worship was a state of mind. A proper state of mind for the Stoics, didn't succumb to, worldly pleasure of the body. But that's a whole nother aspect that we're going to talk about. Probably not today. But anyway, the Greek concept of worship, which was proskuneo, it was seen as a specific act of reverence or homage. And I'm saying this because this is what we see. Modern worship can also be seen from a Greek point of view in some places, but I'm really pointing toward the modern worship that we see all around us that we don't call worship, but it actually is. But yet we can still see some of that within, our gathering places. And I even see it in the Hebrew roots, because so many Hebrew roots don't understand, nor do they want anything to do with worship. They want to just teach me. But anyway, so whether we're in the Greek, if you're worshiping in the Greek point of view, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, you do it at a specific time. Your praise and worship team, they're popular and they're good, by the way. I have praise and worship team myself, but it's all in how we look at it too. So I'm not saying they're bad, but when they're up there performing and everybody else is sitting around or waiting for them to get over, that's not worship, guys. At least, and worship can be happening from the team, but the people are there as audience participants, and that's their fault. That's not necessarily the congregational leadership's fault.
Right. That's really true. I always think about over in Revelation, where it talks about the sea of people. They begin the worship. It's the people. They're not following the lead of a worship team or the angels. It is the worship that comes up spontaneously from the body of Messiah that's before his throne. And so I just think about what a wonderful thing that would be when worship begins to flow first from the congregation.
And I've seen that before, and it's wonderful. Flow out of prayer, flow through from prayer, flow worship, prayer, flow out of worship, both hand in hand, harp and bowl ministry. And I love that. That's sort of our concept. But in the Greek concept, you have this specific time that you meet to worship at your colosseums or at your congregational settings. And I'm telling you, it's not just the Christian, it can be any time when it's not really about the heart. And then you sing your fast songs. Some would call that praise. It's upbeat. It's, get you going. And then you sing your slow songs. And your adoration is important. And I'm not saying any of that's bad, because we sing some upbeat and some slow, and maybe we go back to upbeat. We just want to follow the Ruach HaKodesh on that. So none of this is bad in and of itself. It is the idea of the way you do it, or the way people's mindsets are about it. Because when the mundane cares of the world, they get through all of that, and then they're able to go to praise and worship. And it's an event instead of a lifestyle. It's a appointed time instead of something that flows out of your life. And then all of a sudden, now I think the correct way, it is an appointed time, but you're coming together, and there's such an overflow of worship that you've been doing to him all week, giving him all week, Yeshua, Yahweh, that there's an overflow when the rivers of all the people, the living water from all the people come together. And wow. Now that's what it's about. It's not just an event. Okay, I took off my worship hat. I'm going to go continue my life as usual. Or I did my best. I went through the motions of what I was supposed to do. That's not worship, guys. That's still a Greek mindset. It's still that Greek mindset.
Well, you can use it in this term. And we talk about a flow in worship, and we talk about a river in worship. There's a particular current that takes place. But understand this: it's not initiated from the worship team. The worship is that we should bring the river with us. We should be a fountain that is overflowing. There's our walking in spirit and truth, and that true worshipers must worship in spirit and truth. We need to be bringing the overflow with us. We need to bring the fountain with us. So if all of us have a fountain, and when we gather, you will have a flow of a river.
And I want to say how important that is. And I'm going to, just before I say that, I want us to, we're talking about this Western mindset or this Greek mindset, having an event instead of a lifestyle. When the event's over, it's over. But I want to tell you how important is the river that Jason was speaking of, that you were speaking of, that I've spoken of when it comes together. I'm going to give an example. I'm going to tell on Jason and Christine right now. When they are part of worshiping, and I believe there's worship leaders that are not necessarily on the stage, but there's something that happens when they begin to worship, because I can tell you right now, they love Yahweh and they pour themselves out in worship, and it shifts the atmosphere around them. That's why when they're missing, if I don't see them, I'm like, oh man, because something happens when I get to worship with them. The river that flows out of them is powerful. And, and it literally, it causes other people to, then there's an anointing on it, and it causes other people to fall into worship too. Okay, sorry, Jason, Christy, I'm telling on you because it really blesses me, but it blesses those around you. That's so important that we come together,
yes,
not as an event, but out of the overflow of the life we've been living, coming together with those rivers flowing. And that's just a little bit of, that's just the beginning. We're going to have to finish this next week. So
yeah,
not an event.
Time flies.
Well,
it's a fast hour.
Well,
but we did take up.
But it's okay. It's
35 minutes with talking about other things before we could get into the teaching.
That's okay.
But we're glad you joined us this evening, and we do hope that you join us in the future. Spread this show around. Let people know that we're on live here on the third day of the week, Tuesday evenings at 8:00 Central. And we'd love for you to join us. Of course, we want you to join us at Life of Worship if you'd like to be part of our Torah study, which is at 2:00 Central. And we do put that on TeamViewer. No, not TeamViewer. What do we put it on? Zoom. Yeah, I'm thinking, which one do we use? Okay, it's been a long day. So we use Zoom, and if you'd like to be part of it, let us know so we can send you a link to be part of that Torah study. And that goes from 2:00 until about 4:30, somewhere along there. And then also we have our live worship service at 5 p.m. on Shabbat, which we do put on YouTube. So at Life of Worship Amarillo. So just check that out, and we'd love for you to join us there.
And one more time, Sukkot's coming up October 2nd, Friday, October 2nd through Saturday, October 10th. And you can register online. You can drop me an email. I can send you a registration packet. However you want to do it, just show up. We would love to have you.
Yes. Yeah, we're looking for a good time again this year. We had a great time last year, and so we're looking for another time.
I still think that's the place where we're going to find protection during all of these events.
And it's a beautiful place. It's really beautiful.
All right.
So, well, with that said, thank you for joining us in this broadcast this evening, and for walking in spirit and truth. This is John Craig.
And this is Sandy.
Until next time, shalom.